Back on. Could you introduce yourself, please, for our magic recorder here? Thank you very much.
Sure. I'm Jennifer Doyle Breen from AECom, and
I'm Annie Bastoni from Mass DOT.
My name is Yan Zhang from AECom.
And where are you from, sir?
AECom.
AECom. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
should we start? Or?
You start. You're
Yep.
all set to
Okay.
go. Thank you very much.
So we're here as a continuance of our hearing from February 10th. At that hearing, there were some questions raised, and so we submitted some written responses last week to Kathy, and she, I talked to her, she said she's distributed them all to you. So I can go over what we sent in, and if you'd like, I can start by just giving an overview of the project again, since it's been, or should I just go right into the response?
No, give a brief overview for the public. That would be very helpful.
Okay. So the notice of intent that we submitted on behalf of Mass DOT was for stormwater BMPs to treat runoff from I-93 that currently goes into the Neponset River without being treated. It's currently a direct discharge. The BMPs that are shown on this
And BMPs are?
best management practices, stormwater best management practices. The BMPs that are shown on this figure are part of DOT's larger impaired waters project, looking at impaired waters across the state and evaluating how stormwater BMPs can be retrofit into existing infrastructure areas to help treat stormwater runoff. So as this figure shows, again, I'll just go over this quickly, there are 4 BMPs that DOT is planning on putting in the area near the Neponset River, as shown on this figure. One of them, Site A, is in Boston. This side of the river is in Milton. These 3 BMPs, C, D, and E, are all in Milton. Only C is in a Wetland Protection Act resource area. The other 2, D and E, are outside of resource areas. So C is in 100-foot buffer zone of a vegetated wetland, which is shown here on this figure as with the delineated green line. So when we were here in February, again, there were some questions raised, and we provided written responses, and I know I gave copies to Kathy, but I have 9 copies here, so should I just give them to you?
Yes,
or-
because
Yeah, that would be
Maybe
great.
via
hand them
email
out.
rather than hard copies.
So first of all, since our February 10th hearing, at Site C, we have fine-tuned the grading a little bit, and this really wasn't in response to a concern raised by the commission. It was just something that, as we've been finalizing the design for Mass DOT, we modified the grading just very slightly to try to blend it in more with the existing landscape and make it more of a natural feature rather than a more obvious hole in the ground, so to speak. So there's been some minor grading changes here, and we have also added some landscaping, and which is shown here on this figure. And both of these figures that I've just flipped to are in the letter. And I also, they're in at 8.5 by 11s in the letter, but I also brought 11 by 17s. Which, maybe you could hand those out too. They're stapled together.
Okay.
So you could see them a little bit clearer. So, so these plans were attached to the letter. In addition to that, as a result of these small grading changes, we made some minor updates to the stormwater report, to the HydroCAD model in the stormwater report, to reflect those grading changes. And in our letter, so attachment 1 of the letter are the 2 plans that Jan just handed out to everybody. And then attachment 2 are just the things that changed in the stormwater report. So we provided just a new cover page with a new date. There were, again, just a few small changes in some of the numbers that were in the stormwater report and in the HydroCAD model. And then also provided in your letter packets is the new HydroCAD output, which is all those colored graphs and tables of various calculations. In addition to that, at the meeting in February, there was some questions asked about the construction schedule. So in our letter, you'll see that there's a section with the heading construction schedule that outlines and explains what the construction schedule is. The BMPs that are shown, that were shown on the overview figure, are being bundled with some other best management practices for in Weymouth and Braintree, and that whole package is scheduled to go out for bidding by Mass DOT in June. So in order to make that happen, we're really hoping to have all the permits in hand before June so that we can have a complete bid package. And Mass DOT's bidding schedule is important because they are getting federal funding for this project, and so it does need to go out to bid in that time frame to maintain the funding.
Does that mean the bid has to go up in June, or are you trying to back it up?
The documents, the bidding documents are released in June, and then it takes approximately 4 months to select a contractor. And then it will be a 2-year construction period, approximately. Does that answer your question?
Well, it does, but I noted in the letter that you were looking for a vote tonight in advance of our inspection. And that, we could certainly consider that. But in light of the fact that you're not submitting until June, is that necessary from your perspective?
Yes, because in June is when the entire bidding package will go out to contractors. So usually the ideal would be that all the permits are in hand by then so that the contractors have all the information about any conditions that may be in the permits or anything that might affect the construction. So they have all that information when they're putting together their bids.
Understanding that, it's certainly possible that we could see something and move some lines. It probably wouldn't affect the construction schedule, or it probably wouldn't affect the contractor's bid either. But this is March. If we were to do an inspection in April, we could issue in April or May. I'm just
Yep,
looking for
yep.
like alternatives, because you're kind of asking to give a conditional assent. It would be conditioned upon a subsequent review of the delineation lines.
Right. That is what we're asking for. You're right. So that we have as much information as we can in advance of the bidding. So I hear what you're saying. You're saying we
Might
could.
change, we might change the line. I don't think it's gonna have a huge impact. It might be, 5 feet this way or that.
But it could happen.
It could happen. So to the extent that we moved a line, what's better for you, for DOT? We don't wanna hold up the project. It's a good project. And it helps.
I'm going to flip back here, which shows, so just to orient all of us, this is the wetland over here. This is the current delineated line. And if the line were to be moved a few feet, we're not grading right up to the line. We're close over here. So I do see your point. I mean, I think from Mass DOT's perspective, it would be preferable to have sort of all the ducks in a row, and then if the line were moved a little bit, it like you said, it probably won't affect what's going on here, but they would have already been able to move forward with the process and complete their bid package.
But we could do it at the site walk as well. We
In
could
April.
give you- In April.
April, that would give you a month and a half or 2 months.
So you're saying if we had the site walk in April, and then you have 21 days to issue the order of conditions, right? So that could push it,
We could issue the order of conditions that day.
At
you
the
could,
sidewalk.
at the
Yeah,
site
at
walk
the
if you have
sidewalk.
a
That's
quorum
what you're
there.
to say.
We have a
Yes.
quorum, we have
Yeah.
a announced
Yeah.
public meeting.
Yep.
Done that in the past.
I mean, that if the order of condition, I mean, I think that we were thinking if the hearing closed tonight, we would probably get the order of conditions in mid-April. So I see what you're saying, that we could just, if you wanted to wait and have the site visit, then you could have the site visit and then issue the order of conditions still in mid-April, right then at the site visit.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, we do have some safety concerns with large numbers of people being on the side of a very large interstate.
Yeah.
But that's gonna happen anyway. We're not gonna sign a blank check
Yeah.
and just say, oh, okay, we'll take your lines.
Yeah.
I mean, in the interest of setting precedent our attempts to be uniform in our application of the regs, we do have to look at the line.
You do that for every project.
We do it for every project.
You do.
Yeah. I did want to bring that up because we would need a police detail to go for the site visit here?
Yeah, I don't know how we would do it because there's
Um,
no shoulder.
Right, I think, we used police detail when we were doing the field work.
Yep.
Yeah,
Because there's I-93 here, this is the on-ramp and this is the off-ramp.
right.
We could go in one car. There's a trooper that parks there, you know, every 10 days to keep people from cutting in line.
Basically, if I may come in again, it's pretty hard to walk through the area. It's not an easy hike. So, if I may.
But we've done that before too.
I know, so,
A
yeah.
couple of times.
So I think there's probably two ways to do it. You can access from here. It's a slightly easy way to walk up, or walk down from this area. That's very tough to. Sorry, thank you. If you walk down from here, that's a little bit steeper slope to come down, and
Heavy-duty travel, Saturday at 8 a.m.
And this is assuming there's no snow on the ground in
Yeah.
April.
By the
We're
18th
hoping.
of April, I hope so.
Yeah.
Hope spring's return.
And you'll give me the correct location of where the public can meet to go into the spot.
Meeting location? Is
We
that what
we
you-
could meet in the yard, the
Yeah.
Mass Highway.
Right
Yeah,
across the street.
Right across the street.
Yeah.
So in the public knows what Mass Highway Yard
Yes.
on Grant Avenue?
the depot.
Yes.
So in the event that there is still snow on the ground, because I'm not convinced that it'll be gone, I mean, it's likely that there's lots of snow piled in the interchange, then it would be a month out after that.
We could, we're not opposed to doing a conditional assent. It just makes better sense that if we're, you know,
Finalize.
y'all be assured that it's a final product and we've approved it as is.
Well, we could go one more week. Would the 25th be better in terms of wet with snow or something?
I think we'd probably have to evaluate and then
Maybe at the meeting on April. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
and see what the snow
Yeah,
conditions
okay.
are. But it sounds like what you're saying, if there is still huge piles of snow there that aren't melted, then at that time in April, the commission might consider a conditional
Correct,
approval.
that's correct.
Right.
Is it currently flagged? Just under snow, or do you have to flag it?
I think we would have, it has been flagged, but we would have to go out and check the flags. I
Right.
mean, certainly, it's a Phragmites wetland too, so the flags were
yeah.
hung on Phragmites, so, you know, it's quite possible that those stalks have senesced
Right.
and the flags are gone.
I
Plus
did-
with the snow.
I did see, though, that as part of your plan there, you're going to remove the invasives? Is that true? Or was that a mistake?
I'm sorry, where do you see the note, that note? I-
Landscaping notes, number 2.
So it would be in the area where there's already going to be disturbance and where the landscaping is planned. It's certainly not in the Phragmites wetland. We're not going to be controlling that Phragmites. We're not going into the wetland at all.
You see this?
I do, I see that, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, we're disappointed.
We
A
would
lot
have
of work
had-
to be done.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So no, we're not planning on controlling the Phragmites.
So where are you? It says a certified arborist shall also inspect all vegetation within the limit of work to identify invasive species, period. All invasive species shall be removed by the contractor.
In the limit of work, yep. So that would be inside this red line.
Okay. Sorry, gotcha. All right, any other questions by commissioners? Abutters, members of the public? Everybody know where this is? It's the on-ramp to the expressway off of Granite Avenue? Any comments, suggestions, criticisms? Hearing none? We'll adjourn this now. What's your preference, 25th or the 18th?
Are we expected to come back to the hearing next
No,
month?
you don't have to do that. And we can certainly stay in touch by phone. Why don't we set it for the 18th? Saturday morning, the
Right.
18th at 8 a.m. And we'll meet in the DPW yard across Granite Avenue. And if we see a problem at our meeting on the 14th, we'll contact you right away and we can kick it out a week.
Yep,
That make sense?
yep, that does make sense.
All right, good. And with that said, and your assent, we'll adjourn. All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Randolph Avenue, Meg Lane, we're not gonna keep hitting that, right? We should let people know.
Oh, right, Judith makes a good point. Number 9 on the agenda, no.
Yeah, it is Randolph
No,
Ave.
we've got a different agenda.
Oh, sorry.
It's-
What number is it?
11.
11, okay.
11, number 11 on the agenda is 693 711 Randolph Avenue. That's Meg Lane. Are there any members of the public that are here for that? Because there's been a request to continue that by the applicant. And I don't want anybody to hang around and wait, because we're just on number 4 right now. I don't want you to wait until 11 and then find out it's going to be continued anyway. Okay? Good, that was a good point. All right.
Actually, Mr. Holland's here. Does he have to do anything with that reissue of the, taking Ingrid's name off of it?
No, that's a ministerial.
Okay.
Oh, hey, Mr. Holland, thank you. We made a mistake, but it's a ministerial mistake.
Okay.
On the order for 693 711, because we had an inappropriate signature. We switched.
Yes, I returned that. We're talking about the letter I returned to you?
Yes.
I gave
Correct.
to Bill Clark, so.
All right, so you're aware of that. So we're going to re-sign it, but without the inadvertent signature on there. All right, because we're just trying to avoid a conflict.
Okay.
All right.
Not a problem.
All right, but you are requesting a continuance, is that right?
Yeah, I'm requesting a continuance.
Okay. It's okay with
Yeah.
Arthur, everybody? Craig? Is that,
John, can I ask one
I
thing?
don't have
Is
this
Matthew
copy.
Burns
This
still
is the one that,
on board to do the
went
testing?
on the email.
Arthur was in contact with him, I believe he is.
Yes.
Tonight.
And do you know what the question relates to?
Sometime in
You have the,
July,
You have the old one.
March, or
you have the one,
April.
yeah, one is mine.
Would that be okay?
Okay, Matt Byrne is
No,
a
actually,
wetland scientist who specializes in vernal pools. And we had asked, I think we discussed this at the last meeting, we asked him to give an assessment as to whether or not there's a vernal pool in the area closest to the DPW yard.
Is that something the town is paying for on their own?
No, the applicant pays for that.
Okay, because I didn't think that, I
It's
thought,
not very expensive.
I thought our wetland scientist just didn't think there was a vernal pool there.
That,
so I just-
that's
That's
true.
true.
That's true, but under chapter 43B, section something, we can ask for a consultant that the applicant pays for. But I can tell you this, we've actually asked Matt Byrne to help us in the past, and he was surprisingly and very pleasantly cheap. So cost effective, right. And he's very good.
Okay.
He's very good. He's got a great reputation, and, but he can't do it until
The snow.
April,
Right.
when the snow disappears.
Okay.
All right? So you're asking for the continuance?
I am asking.
All right, and we all agree?
Yes.
You all right, Craig, with the continuance?
I agree.
All right,
Okay.
go. Thank you very much, sir, for coming in. Well, that was fast on number 11. So we are now on number 4, notice of intent at 38 Wendell Park. Anybody here from Wendell Park? Kathy, do you know who's coming in?
I thought the applicant was coming in.
All right, well, we don't have an applicant. So we'll go on to the next one, order of conditions, 1374 Canton Avenue. Anybody for that? Going
That
once?
actually is the letter that they now are outside.
Yeah, we
our
saw that in the letter.
Right,
It was an order of
correct.
condition.
But that's because they didn't move the line, they moved the reserve area,
Correct.
Yes.
all right? So is everybody comfortable, because that line we set 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
So if it's within 3 years, we could probably
Yes.
rely upon our own judgment.
I'm good with it.
Okay,
Arthur, you good with that?
Yes.
All right, Ingrid,
Yep.
Judith?
it's fine.
Craig, do you understand what we just did?
Yeah.
1374, what they did is they removed the reserve area from our jurisdictional
Yes.
bounds, no, and we set that line about 3 years ago. So they're out of our jurisdiction, so we're saying go and bless you. Okay. All right, that takes care of 1374 Canton Avenue.
So everyone
Although
agrees
that's
they're
a-
outside the jurisdiction of the commission, right?
Yes.
Right, but it's an order of conditions, so, I don't know if we can translate that into an RDA and give a negative. Or I guess there's a place on the form for an order of conditions that we can just say, that is non-jurisdictional.
Yes, we can, it's no longer, yeah.
All right. So we now move on to number 6, notice of intent, 375 Hillside Street, continued hearing. Good evening. Good evening. Hi, could you introduce yourselves for our recording here?
Yes, my name is Darren Grady from Grady Consulting, and I'm here with Patty and Peter Droof and their attorney.
Walter
Sullivan.
Hi. How are you, Walter?
Good, thank you.
All right. What have you for us today?
At the last hearing, I presented a plan at 375 Hillside Street. The plan was a proposed addition to the left of the existing house and proposed hot tub and hardscape behind the existing barn. You had requested some additional information. Including in that information was, we've modified the plan to show that the driveway has been labeled turf block driveway or approved equal. One of the commissioners had made a comment that grass paved system is maybe a good idea. So I've included that also on the details and approved equal as to allow my clients to do that. A note has been added to the plan to remove leaf piles, stumps, logs, and debris. I believe this is the area you're
Yes,
talking about?
right by the stream, yes.
There was an existing pump and force main that was located behind the barn, and there is a connection to the barn to the septic system. The riverfront area has been added, and the 100-foot inner riparian zone has been added to the plans, and a narrative is included with our submission. The trees to be removed as part of this project have been flagged on the site and shown on the plan. There's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. They're all sugar maples, and the sizes have been noted on the plan as well. Floor plans that were requested are also attached in the supplemental information. As part of the narrative in the riverfront alternatives analysis, we're showing that we are disturbing 2,240 square feet of alteration of the riverfront area. The majority of lots in the riverfront area, and it's a total of 42,370 square feet. And the 2,240 square feet of alteration is under the 5,000 maximum allowed. If you have any questions, or I can answer those.
My memory of one of the questions I had was on the tree survey, which you've done, was why they were coming down. Are they in the way of construction, or is it just aesthetics, or what was the purpose in removing? I know I had one tree in mind.
The one in front, that's 22.
Yeah.
There's a large maple in front.
This one here?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was both aesthetics and you wanted it away from the house?
Yeah, our concern frankly is that the house is very close to that, and given the size, it could cause some pretty serious damage to the house. I look at it more as a safety, a precaution against safety.
But the distance from the existing dwelling is not changing, correct? I mean, I know the proposed addition is going in, but it's not getting any closer to the tree. I mean,
yes,
is it an existing hazard to your current home?
It
Or-
would be, but the addition, I believe the footprint of the addition would also come over that. So there's obviously 2 reasons for that.
I'm sorry, are you
That's the
Mr. and
smaller
Mrs. Droof?
We are,
I missed
Patty and-
that. Thank you. It's a wonderful house you're buying. The
It is.
grounds
It
are
is.
fabulous. There have been plant sales there for years. Wonderful, wonderful place.
Yeah, yeah.
How big is that sugar maple? It's 22 inches in diameter.
Those two trees are right next to the current house.
I know.
And it's actually on the east side of the house. So it would give you some shade in the summertime. Is it?
The two trees are pretty close together, and they would be right where the addition.
We're talking in the front.
In the
Oh, in
front,
front?
that
This
one.
one.
Yeah, that one.
Front right of the driveway, so as you come in, this one here.
The 22-inch.
Yeah.
Big tree to remove, yeah.
So it would be in the front yard?
That one there is the one that we're discussing as far as the proximity to the house. And whether it be detrimental to the house.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a tree probably of that size has a root system too, that, let's see, I'm getting a little bit confused, because there's one right off,
There's one that's being removed that's right adjacent to the existing house.
Okay.
And that's in the footprint.
yes. And-
There's another
Okay,
one
that's
that's
the one,
out maybe 15 or 16 feet in front of the house.
Okay.
In front of even the addition.
okay,
In the middle of the front yard that we're asking about.
okay, that helps. That's one, that you would-
I mean, have you had it looked at? Is it in bad shape? Does it need to be pruned, or?
We have had it looked at. It's, I do have, I mean, regardless, I do have a concern about the safety because of its proximity to the house, that if it falls, the only good place would be across the street. If it falls anywhere, it would be damaging to probably the new structure that we're looking at or the existing house.
What if you, when you're planting, if you want to take this one down, why don't you put some smaller types of trees also in the front that would be a little
Hey.
bit farther removed? It's also the aesthetics, and we protect that aspect.
Yep.
And Hillside Street traditionally has tall trees along the street,
Mhm.
not so much lawns and then the house, but trees as well. So if that one is a little too close to your house, as you see it, you know, if you put maybe 2 by the stone wall, you have to replace some trees anyway. But just put them closer to the stone wall, and maybe not a sugar maple that gets 100 feet tall, but, you know, a dogwood or a
Yeah,
magnolia.
we're certainly open
that's
to that.
Something like that.
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
Yeah. To preserve that character of trees along the street there.
Actually, that would be our goal anyways, would be to do that.
We have a line here. Who did the delineation?
John Zimmer did, from South River Environmental.
You have to look at this, it's, you know, the stream is right there, that's the only thing I'm wondering about. It's right there.
Is this top of bank, or is this?
It's a top of bank in along this property line here. It's a BVW back in here where the B series starts in the backyard as far as the delineation. So there's both the top of bank and
Yeah,
Because we wouldn't see anything for quite a while, except snow at this point, but.
right, I don't think there's gonna be any construction. Do you have a construction plan in place?
No, we wanted to,
I'm not sure what you mean by.
did you mean a permit, a construction permit, or?
No, we try not to slow people down.
Right.
But-
Okay.
But the reality of it is, we can't check these lines with the snow.
Okay,
Top of bank is easy, you can do in the wintertime, but you've got upland wetland BVW, which we need to see the soil and the
Sure.
plant life there. And it's probably not gonna be, it's not gonna mean much to your construction project where we place the line, but, you know, the next person that owns the house might wanna put a McDonald's drive-through there.
yeah,
And we don't wanna set a line that we don't see.
I understand.
Try not, and I think I just said that to the last applicant, the Mass Highway. That we need to get up to.
Intermittent stream or any.
Well, it still says intermittent here, I did notice.
it's a frozen
that.
stream.
At the moment, it's frozen, yeah.
This is-
Mr. Chair, to respond to the question about construction, I think Mrs. Droff was telling me they had to order the lumber by the 18th of April to make your deadline, is that correct?
That's
sidewalk, so.
Any change to the wetland, the edge, is
April 10th.
on the it's only gonna affect the driveway. I mean, even then, it's not. I mean, there's only a small portion of the driveway that's even within the 25-foot setback, and that's a portion that's not even gonna be paved. So it would be relatively insignificant
What would be?
if the wetland line changed.
In terms of ordering any.
In terms of having an impact on the construction, which is all significantly outside of the 25-foot
I
setback.
agree, but I don't want to adopt a line that we haven't seen.
Do you wanna, can we proceed pending review at an appropriate time, at a future time?
No, why don't we do the
Eight-
site walk on
18th.
the 18th? And
It's
we
a public
could,
meeting, we can issue the order.
at that point.
Okay.
Could I just ask for clarification? You asked if we had a construction plan, and I'm not sure.
A contractor lined up.
Yes.
Oh, yes, we're actually
Yes,
in
we
the,
do.
to
I think my
scheduling
husband's
phase of, yeah, I thought you meant actually a permit.
No, it's just a.
Yeah,
it's a-
we definitely have a timeline with a contractor. We're already negotiating, knowing that. In one of the things that we wanted to do is obviously address all of your concerns appropriately. But we also have a timeline that we would like to keep, and hopefully we can kind of work together addressing whatever concerns you have.
So they're not gonna be able to pull the permit until we provide
That's
an order of
correct.
conditions. And how does that, when are they trying to pull the permit on the schedule?
Well, what Mrs. Drove showed me is they have to order the lumber for this house that's been designed by Sandcastle by the 18th of April. And I think they're gonna pull the permit probably after the orders of condition issued, so that would be what, 30 days after that? So, I mean, the lumber's not gonna be here till end of May, is that correct?
Yes,
Something like that.
approximately.
So that's their timetable.
Okay,
So
so that
April
seems like it
18th
fits.
would do
If-
it,
Yeah,
yeah,
if we were in
would
with, at the 18th.
Yeah,
And
I-
on that date, we could give you we could sign off on everything.
It's a public meeting at your house, and we can issue an order
That's
while
fine.
we're
We
standing.
can bring coffee.
We can't accept.
We're
No, I
fine.
understand.
We can accept coffee.
Expensive coffee.
That's right.
Don't you need a landscaping plan, because we're losing trees in a jurisdictional.
We have, I
He's
think, a
actually added it
listing.
on this plan.
Yeah,
So this back here, they've added the
That
trees
that
at the
is,
back.
that, okay.
yeah.
Is this special lumber? This isn't too much else.
I don't know, is it, Craig is asking whether or not there's something special about the lumber.
We don't believe so. It's just a timetable the architect gave us that we had to put in the order by the 18th of April. I don't think there's anything special beyond that.
All right.
And basically, the original structure's going to remain relatively intact, it's not teared out?
No, not
Oh,
a
no,
tear
no.
down at all, no, not at all. It would lose the character of the house.
Yeah, the only disturbance is where the addition joins the left side of the house now.
The landscaping plan does include the dimension of the trees that they're going to plant.
You know,
Yeah,
the
it
landscaping plan as it is, it's fine, it's not exciting. It could be a little more exciting, it's just sort of, basic, the white pines and the sugar maples. But when we're on the site, maybe we could suggest some other trees that
We're
would
open
be
to that.
more interesting, not add to your cost, but at least be more, a little more interesting for the site, so.
I agree. We weren't sure that we had constraint to plant what we were gonna take out, so that's the reason
Sure,
for
we
that.
we can talk about it then.
Absolutely love
Yeah.
it more into.
We'd also need the size.
The size, yeah.
What
Yeah,
Kathy
caliper.
just said, we need a
Caliper.
caliper for those trees. I mean, you can get them the size of your finger.
Is there a
Um,
requirement or for the size?
We would tend to make it a requirement, yes.
No, so is there a minimum, is what I'm asking, what,
We usually look for, 2.5-inch caliper.
So if we were to go
Not
bigger,
just-
that's not a problem, really?
No, bigger's not a
Oh,
problem.
no, bigger's not a problem
Okay,
at all.
okay.
They didn't put a caliper on there, but he did put a height of 4 feet on there for these trees. That
You
is
did
up.
put a height of 4 feet,
Yes,
but
it's on the plan, yeah.
4 feet is, oh, there it is, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Um,
That's something that you want to change.
Is there, or if you do it by
would have to be more
caliper,
than 4 feet.
yeah, if you were 2 inches in caliper, it'd be higher than
Correct.
4 feet.
4 foot high white pine is only about, a year and a half old, so. it's not-
So you're looking for something bigger.
Yeah.
Here's our Ingrid and Judith, what do you think, size?
Oh, yeah, definitely bigger.
But what size, though?
No, just the caliper.
By caliper.
Just by caliper.
So
But what are you looking for?
2.5 inches.
Two and a half inches.
No, no.
Spent some
When
time
you're
looking
talking
for
about
your
a tree
bylaw,
that's at least
and
5 years
Just
old.
for that reason, I couldn't find it.
Sure, 2.5 inches, Carol.
So, one question, stormwater, I thought there was, you had a comment about everything, all the stormwater's going into dry wells on the site. Was that, did I see that, or did you, was that a different project?
I haven't proposed that as far as stormwater.
Can you talk about stormwater then? Just in
Um,
terms of, that we're not, that we're controlling it and we're not,
As far as improvements to the site for stormwater,
because of the addition, there's more impervious surface, and therefore we need to control it.
We are putting in this turf block driveway.
Yep.
And below that, we are showing 12 inches of compacted processed gravel base that will be pervious. Will infiltrate through there. The pictures that I did show during the last show that the paved stone
Remember that, yep?
Yeah.
has stone only on where the wheels would go. Everything else would be grass. Your grass paved system is very similar to that too. So infiltration between the house and the resource area would happen in the driveway area.
So right now, you're just proposing to bring the rain leader down and dump it on the surface of the ground, and the assumption is it's gonna be caught by the driveway?
We do not have dry wells, correct, but yeah, the driveway should be able to take care of that.
Craig, in the past, you've talked about, we ran into some clay, and nothing perked, and we were shocked. Remember, we were up on Park Drive? And, you know, I think Craig, was your idea to ask people to give us a perk, because I understand that, you've got turf blocks there in the driveway, but the roof runoff is gonna go right onto the driveway area. And we don't know whether or not the driveway is gonna be able to handle that runoff,
Well,
because we don't know what the perk rate is.
Well, true, but it's basically a big French drain. He's got 12 inches of gravel under it, but I wouldn't recommend that, because you don't wanna basically load the gravel up with water. If it doesn't perk and you load it with water, you're gonna the whole thing's gonna heave in the winter. So it'd probably be worth your while. We don't typically, we like better control than just letting it run.
Okay.
And if you could add dry wells, sized and based on the perk test, and I think it'll be better than the driveway, because then you're not gonna potentially prime the driveway for a problem. Do you know what you understand what I'm saying,
I
right?
understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And the sizing of the dry wells can be contingent upon the perk test during construction. So you don't need to dig the perk test, you don't need to dig it now. When you got a backhoe on site, dig the hole, do a perk test, and then you'll size it based on that. It should be relatively straightforward to do.
Soils here are relatively good too, according to the septic plan.
Okay. Thank you.
And the other thing, jurisdictionally, it's not gonna matter, and I can't remember if it was this one or the other one that you had an issue with my issue on approving an intermittent stream. I mean, just as a matter of policy, we don't approve that unless somebody, brings in proof. It's not worth fighting over. It says intermittent stream.
I meant to remove the intermittent stream on the plan, and I did add the riverfront area, I added the 100-foot inner riparian zone, I added a riverfront analysis in the narrative. So our,
You can remove it from the.
yes, I
from the
can
plan?
remove that.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
Yeah, that's good.
Um, 9 o'clock on the 18th, Saturday the 18th?
Should we wait to find out what other sites we might have to be on the 18th?
Oh, a minute.
Because it's one end of the town to the other. you're
Right,
saying?
yeah, just because
Okay.
we have the Wakefield, that we postponed, not the Wakefield, the other state.
What other
Do we have
estate are we
anything
looking
else?
at? Eustis Estate?
Yes, the Eustis State.
We're looking at the Eustis Estate? For what?
They
No,
want-
the Eustis Estate, in fact, that's 374.
Next to it.
They removed the reserve area.
No, I'm talking about the one, the big estate. You're talking about,
The Eustace estate, right, up in back of the Mrs. Eustace, the home.
well, they want the commission to come and take a look at the property, the 11 acres, remember?
Oh, that, it's the
Oh,
same
this
place.
is in
It's the
terms
same
of the
place.
transition to historic New England.
Correct.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
not exactly the same place, John. It's, that parcel is next to the Eustace estate. It's right adjacent to it, but,
Right.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's, you go in the same
yeah.
driveway.
No,
So
it's
could we table
the
the
next
time?
driveway.
Can we table the time and then
Just
tell you
because you
later?
continue
But
that to
it'll be that
April.
morning, it'll be the
Okay.
morning of the 18th.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
Right.
Would
flexible.
that be okay?
So we're not zigzagging back and
We're
forth. the rest of
flexible
it.
too, whatever.
But then, if you stay in touch with Kathy, you don't have to stick around to hear, but we'll have it set up by tonight.
Okay.
If you talk to Kathy, it'll be 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock.
Could you send me an email in the morning and I'll forward it?
Yes, I will.
Any comments from abutters, members of the public?
Abutters?
Any other questions from commissioners? Craig? All right, so we will continue this until the 18th. Now, we have a meeting on the 14th, but we'll continue it until the 18th, which is Saturday morning at sometime,
Okay,
in the
Yeah.
9 o'clock to 10 o'clock timeframe. And Kathy will confirm that.
okay.
All right, so we have your assent to continue until that date? Good.
Okay.
And we'll be able to vote then.
But you might want to submit your revisions by removing this
Right.
intermittent stream and the
Yep.
plants and all that to present to them, so they have it before the site walk.
I'll do that
And
right away.
show us where the dry wells are gonna go, and
Yep.
understanding the sizing can change, but, yep.
Okay, great.
On that day, you know, decision?
Yes.
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 Okay.
On site.
Right, public meeting, we'll have a forum, and we'll have a vote. It'll be done.
Stamp the document.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is 395 Hillside Street.
Logan?
Hey, good evening. All right, we're all set. Could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Yes, I'm Marion McKettrick. I'm the attorney representing the applicants for this continued hearing for 395 Hillside Street, and I'm here with Tom Palmer, who is the environmental consultant, and we have some updated information for the board this evening. You should have received a packet about a week before the meeting containing updated letter from Mr. Palmer indicating that we don't need a determination of the nature of the stream on this property for this application. We've provided a detailed foundation plan, which was requested at the previous hearing, showing exactly which parts of the foundation are being reconstructed in the existing carriage house and where there's new foundation being built. We've provided an alternatives analysis, which Tom Palmer is going to explain shortly. And we've provided three architectural plans, three alternative locations. One is the existing location, the other two are other locations for the porch. So what we discussed at the last hearing was moving, whether you could move the porch over in the back of the building, whether you could put the porch on the side, both of which would move it further away from the 25-foot zone. And we've provided drawings, and the alternatives analysis talks about impact with each of those. I wanted to tell you tonight, though, that the owner has indicated that he, in fact, would prefer the second location. So he's not only agreeing to the idea of moving the porch over, he would prefer it.
Okay.
And that if the commission agrees and if they're able to support the application, that would be the location that we would show on a revised site plan.
That's alternative two.
Alternative two.
Thank you.
Just to give you a quick update, we have not yet submitted the NOI for the upgrade to the septic system. We will be submitting it approximately 20 days prior to your April 14th hearing. And at that time, we hope to have approval at least of the concept plan, maybe even of the detailed plan from the Board of Health, which has met with us once and seems to be in support of the idea of using this front system to serve the carriage house. But they had to hire somebody to review the plan because they have no staff who can review septic plans right now. So we don't have a revised septic plan, we don't have a plan for you, we don't have that NOI for you tonight. And because of the snow, we have not been able to revise our site plan to show the driveway location. We are going to do that, but the surveyor can't get on the property to locate the edges of the driveway right now. So by the time you meet next on the 14th, certainly, we're hoping at least that we'll be able to see enough of the site that the surveyor can complete that work. Unless you have questions right now, I'd like to ask Tom Palmer to talk a bit about the alternatives analysis.
Hi, I'm Tom Palmer, the wetlands consultant for this project. I did send you the letter dated March 4th, and you did ask at the last hearing about moving the porch out of the non-disturbed zone. And if you look at the last page of the report, I think that's easiest way to visualize it because it's a photo of the back of the carriage house. And the three positions are labeled 1, 2, and 3. Before I heard from Marion, number 1 was a preferred alternative. That was in the middle of the back of the carriage house. As you know, the porch is about 140 square feet and would come out from the back here and sit on a new foundation. You can see underneath it here. That would be covered up by the porch foundation. And the stairs are intended to come off to the right or toward the main house. But in the second alternative, the entire piece is moved much closer to the main house in that corner. So I think the stairs come out, maybe just, they bottom out near the drain pipe there. That would have the result of putting, I would say, under 20 square feet of the porch in the non-disturbed zone, and that's now the preferred alternative for the owners. They objected to number 3 because they want to look out at the backyard from the porch and not at the other house. I mentioned that lilac would have to come down. You also see there's a wall, a fitted stone at the base there. I'm not sure if the porch would interfere with that. You see some andromedas. I'm not sure if they would be shaded, the bright green evergreen. And you see those purple beauty berries there, quite a nice beauty berry bush there. It's more landscaped on that side than in back. My attitude as a wetlands guy, sort of, is that you don't really get that much benefit from affecting less of the non-disturbed zone with these alternatives because the benefit should be less impact to the stream. And from my point of view, they all have the same minimal impact because they all drain across the backyard or toward you as you're looking at these alternatives and reach the stream that are behind the camera. So whatever location the porch is, whatever additional runoff has about the same distance to reach the stream. And none of it would drain in any instance immediately to the stream, which is over the high ground to the left. What is that quasi-foundation back there, that pile of stones? I think at the last hearing, Milton said it was never a foundation. I'm not sure what exactly it is. At any rate, it is the high point and would prevent water from moving that way. As far as the back door goes, I'm not quite clear what will happen to it, but I believe it's going to be taken out and a new door into the porch from the carriage house, and then the stairs on the left.
On the left or
No,
the right?
excuse me, on the right,
Right,
yes.
yeah.
So I guess this is the alternatives as I saw them. And we know that the owner now prefers number 2, which, as I said, I think will mean that less than 20 square feet will be in the non-disturbed zone. So I guess we are asking you, is alternative 2 okay with you, at least as far as vis-à-vis the other 2 alternatives?
Tom, can I ask you a question about, and I'm gonna sound like a stickler, and I don't mean to be,
Sure.
but 20 square feet is not very much. You know, we try to be uniform and stay out of the 25-foot non-disturbance zone.
Yes.
It's 20 square feet, it's like 4 feet by 5 feet. Can't you just,
Could it be
Move it?
cut to nothing is what you're
Yes.
proposing? Yeah, well, I think that might be possible, because I'm looking at Marion's plan, which I don't know if you have in front of you, but it's the surveyor's plan, and it shows where the 50-foot non-disturb goes through the carriage house. And it doesn't look like it goes quite through the middle on the back side. It actually looks like it might.
I think what we're saying is we're going to determine precisely how much, if any, of the non-disturbed zone is now in the new location. I guess what we're hearing from you, Mr. Kiernan, is if we could make it 0, that would be the best.
Right.
Right.
And we're going to do our best. If not, we'll give you the measurement, but I don't have the new location on the plan yet. I guess what we're here tonight to do is to find out whether you encourage us to relocate that porch, move it over. It certainly moves more of it out of the non-disturbed zone. And in that case, in addition to putting the driveway on this site plan, which we promised to do, we are going to be showing the new location for the porch, and we're going to show you exactly where that line is. And I will encourage the architect and the owner and the construction manager to work on trying not to have anything in that if we can help it. But I don't know if that's possible, because I just can't answer that question. I mean, I'm not the architect, and he's taken the same, he's taken approximately the same porch. The dimensions are slightly different, I think, in the second one, and moved it over. So maybe there's a little bit of modification that can be done. What you're asking us to do is to try to design it so that it doesn't intrude. Correct?
Yeah. Makes it easier decision
Yeah, okay.
and an
So
extra
we'll
vote.
do our best, and we will come back to you with a drawing in between this hearing and the next hearing that will show you what we've been able to do, so that you'll be prepared for what we're going to come back with.
would it, now, we're on for the 14th,
Yeah.
The 18th.
18th, I'm
I
sorry.
mean, the
No, the
14th
14th,
was the meeting.
our meeting,
Sidewalk.
18th, sidewalk, yeah.
But I'm just wondering whether or not, if you can get the plans in, and rather than having 2 meetings, maybe we could have 1 meeting on site? I mean, I'd like to see it.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
True.
Yeah,
So
if you
forget about
add
the
it in on
14th,
that.
go right to the 18th.
We
Correct.
will be here on the 14th because of the NOI for the septic system.
Okay.
So, I mean, we do have to be here anyway for that, so, but whatever you would prefer to do. Unfortunately, we will be on your agenda again on the 14th because of that. I'm hoping that
I'm
that would
much
be
less
easier.
concerned about the porch than I am about the septic system. I can't imagine a septic system that close to a stream. And I know it's been there all so many years, but still, it's amazing to me that it's, 5 feet from a flowing stream.
5 feet from a flowing stream? I don't think,
Almost, the old one was, so they're moving it back a little bit. That's my recollection.
I don't have the plan in front of me. I believe it's, well, I'm not going to contradict you because I don't really know.
It's less than 50 for sure.
It's definitely less than.
Maybe I'm exaggerating.
Yeah, well, it was approved in 1999, it's there, it's not going to be made any larger, and the new system that's being put in produces cleaner, whatever it's called, effluent?
Effluent?
Yes.
Produces cleaner effluent than the current system.
That's the information I'd be looking for.
Yeah,
certainly.
that's very important, and that will also be presented to the Board of Health without having their approval. I can't tell you absolutely that it's been approved, but this is a new system, it is acceptable, DEP allows it now, and it's chosen for the reasons that you're explaining, because of the location of this septic, this leaching field, it would be important to try to improve it, not just increase its capacity. The other thing we talked about at the last meeting was whether we might want to give you a mitigation plan for removing some invasive species, which there are a few plants in the
You
backyard
can
that are.
see the barberries down at the lower corner here. If you have a color version, I'm not sure. Those are the red. They
And
still
the-
got berries on 'em.
And then possibly, planting something in substitution for that. You haven't had the site walk, you haven't seen the site, and it's not going to be really growing much even when you do see it. But we have, we are interested in doing that. We
Great.
can't give you a plan, even, we can't see anything right now, so we can't really produce that plan for you. We intend to produce a plan, and I would like to say we will try to have it for your next meeting, or at least something that will show what we, sort of aspirational. I think we can maybe be able to locate the invasive species, but we may want some, some discussion about what else might be helpful to put in there.
You had mentioned before that the backyard behind this was pretty much all lawn.
That's
And-
right, right up to the
Moss
edge of the
and lawn.
stream.
Moss lawn. Yeah, but and I think I said at that time that it would be nice to be able to introduce some native along the edge of the stream, partly as a buffer, partly as an opportunity to bring it back.
Yeah, Ellen, I think, planted some irises in there, and they do like it wet.
Yeah.
And curiously, in December, we had a torrent, and the water was moving so fast that those rhizomes were just washed out. It was interesting. You could see the yellow roots that had been, were just lying on the surface. It's sort of a difficult site, I think, because of the speed of the water.
Yeah.
But there should be some moisture there and good opportunities to shade the brook there, I think. So, yeah, I think when we see it, we'll have better idea, but we want to give you something to start with.
One other thing. So this is actually an unusual situation because the 25-foot setback is actually flowing away from the stream.
It is unusual, right.
So from my perspective, and I don't believe that any of these porch schemes are detrimental. So even from my perspective, even the original porch scheme is acceptable because of the fact that what the 25-foot setback is trying to do is protect the stream, and anything that's at that side of the stream is actually flowing away. So it gets back, I mean, I've talked about the tributary area, for vernal pools and all of that, and that should be the basis. This is a similar condition where, because the water's flowing away from the stream, it's really not impacting the stream at all.
It's true.
But they're proposing to go with the second option, which only improves it, but I think it's irrelevant.
Call me a strict constructionist. Okay.
Wouldn't be the first time, John.
Yeah.
We know what that means.
We'll do the best we can with the redesign. It needs to
We'll
be
have
addressed
that
by the
argument
end.
on site.
And we
I'm
do
gonna
agree with
argue-
that analysis, nevertheless, we understand.
I'm
that-
going to argue with your term, carriage house. I can't say that it's a carriage
I
house.
call it carriage house garage.
It's like a barn to me.
Barn, yes.
It was,
Your personal experience.
What is the plan for it? Is it, there are bedrooms going in and?
The plan is that, well, as you enter the carriage house now, there's a parking space in front of you, and to the left, there's a storage area. And there are stairs that take you upstairs. There's a small space with one partition and a sort of a narrow end space. Upstairs, in the small space, will be a bedroom, and then the partition area will just be open. That's what they call the recreation room, but it's just kind of a narrow area. Downstairs, where the parking space is now, there will be a parking space. On the left, where there's now storage, will be a small bathroom, and probably still some storage. So the improvements will be the bedroom and the bathroom. And the bathroom is, the bedroom is the issue for the septic system. When you add a bedroom, you have to have the capacity. And the bathroom is, I guess, just for the convenience of whoever is going to be occupying the bedroom. And as I think I explained at
Is
the
this
first...
a rental unit or what?
There's no kitchen?
No, the Rubens own a number of properties. They bought this house for their daughter when she was teaching in Boston, and they decided, even after she left, to keep the house, and they use it for family reunions or family gatherings. They come to Boston several times a year, and that's why they'd like to have the additional bedroom, because when you see the property, the house is very nice, but it's quite small. All of the rooms are small, and they just want extra space, but they didn't want to reconstruct the house and change the way it looked. And that's the only way they could add space. So they wanted to use the existing space inside the barn, and it does look like a small barn, I agree. And they want to keep the barn looking as much as possible the way it looks now. So the porch would be added to the back.
Sure.
The front of the barn will still look the same.
Is it heated?
It will be heated, but I don't know what the heating system will be. I mean, it's possible it's just going to be electric heat or something. I'm sorry Milton couldn't be here tonight. He is available by phone if you have a question you want me to send to him. So sum total is, we did go to the Historic Commission, we went to the Board of Appeals, explained that the purpose of this particular design was to retain the historic look of the property. And the Historical Commission, in the end, was quite supportive. We had to explain 4 alternatives for doing construction on the property, and they preferred this. The Board of Appeals likewise, although it would be quite uncommon for them to approve this type of work, agreed that in this case that it did make sense, and with the condition that there could never be any kitchen cooking facilities in the barn, they were willing to approve it, and they've granted, we're in an appeal period now, but they granted a variance and a special permit to that.
Hey, what about the heating? I mean, it's gonna require utility lines, gas lines, but
There's already electricity running to the building, to the barn. And I'll have to ask the question about heat because I don't know what the heating system is going to be. And I'm trying to think, I did ask the question. I'm sorry, I don't recall. I'll have to get that information. And we'll just send you a follow-up, a memo explaining and what will be required, if anything.
are there water lines going in there now?
There is a water line going in there now, and there will have to be water, of course, to serve the bathroom. And there will be a force, not very good on these terms, force main?
Yeah,
Ejector pump.
Force main.
Has to go up, yeah.
Yes, to carry the sewage through a line up to the tank, which is in front of the house, and that doesn't have to be changed. So I'm sorry you don't have the plan. It was just a bit too late to submit it, but the NOI plan has already been prepared. Shows a 2-inch line going up to the existing tank from the barn, and then shows the dimensions of the leaching field, which are the same dimensions, and explains what the work is that's going to be done on the field. The temporary disturbance in order to do the work, and then it will be restored.
They call it a D-box, don't they? I forget.
All right. Any other questions?
I'm sorry you don't have all the plans in front of me. Can you just run through the foundation plan? Is this the one we were talking about having part of it, the foundation on piers instead of a full 8-foot foundation?
I'm glad you asked that question. I forgot to mention that. The owners have agreed to put the porch on piers. There will be no foundation, solid foundation around the porch. The foundation plan that we have provided for you tonight is the foundation plan for the barn. And because you wanted more explanation of how the work was going to be done, where there had to be new foundation built and where the existing foundation would remain. Does that answer the question?
Craig,
Impact upon the wetlands.
Craig, the drawing is very clear, and it shows that all of the work is being proposed on the currently open portions of the foundation wall. So it's not as, I mean, depending on where the wetland, the 25-foot setback line is, portion of that might actually be within that. But it's all areas of the foundation that are currently either deteriorated or open to the basement.
Super.
Okay. Any questions, comments, suggestions from the public, butters, anyone? Hearing none, do we have your assent to continue this until the 14th, which is your septic plan date anyway?
Yes. I just have one question. I assume the commission wants a plan that shows how runoff will be contained during construction. Do you require a plan for that, or a description, or what do you want for that?
If you could show
It'll be on the plan.
you show it on the site plan. it doesn't need to be a special plan for that, but if you can show the line of,
The barriers or
Yes,
whatever's going to be
exactly.
erected.
Yep, exactly.
Whatever.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to meeting with you again on the
Good.
14th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks to both. All right, next on the, is that?
1 minute break?
Sure, 1 minute break. What time is it? 10 after 9.
Daylight savings time.
Poetry.
That was an introduction to an Alfred Hitchcock. Very well done, John. Very well done.
or Monty Python, one or the other.
Really?
Now, it's something
And now.
completely different.
I like Monty Python.
I love Monty Python. Yeah.
I thought it was 131 Elliott Street. This is 141 here.
Yes.
Isn't it 131?
It is 131. Oh, it used to be.
I saw that too, it's a typo. Although, in the old plans, John,
Oh, there you go.
131 to 141.
Sure, sure. But what about Bill? Are we going to delay that?
I don't know.
Oh, he's not there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Anne Marie and John.
Okay, all right.
Wanted a 5 minute.
Right, can we take a 5-minute recess? Thank you very much. Patient. Next on the agenda is 0 Central Avenue, Town of Milton. Come forth and identify yourself, please.
William Clark, Planning Director.
Anne Marie Fagan, Town Administrator.
Katie Conlon, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank
Are you
We
prepared
would
to
like
go
to-
forward, or would you like to,
We would like a continuance until next month,
April 14th?
April,
Yes, that would work.
okay.
Yeah.
April 14th.
April 14th sounds good to me. Anybody else? Comments? Hearing none. Craig, any comments? Town of Milton, what'd he say?
Like you said, go for it.
Go for it, okay, all right.
Very good.
You have the official word. Granted.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much.
We'll
Thank
see
you
you on
all.
April 14th, thank you.
Thank you.
Number 9 and number 10, well, actually, we should separate those. Number 9 is notice of intent, 131 Elliott Street demolition continued hearing. And then adjacent to that is 131 Elliott site development continued hearing.
We've got the wrong number on the agenda. It's 141. It's a typo.
Oh, so 131.
It's
It's
131.
131.
131.
Right, Steve? 131.
Same place.
Same thing.
Welcome, gentlemen. Could you identify yourselves for our record, please? Oh, hold on a second. There we go. Okay. Could you identify yourselves for the record, please?
Peter Freeman, Freeman Law Group, attorney for the applicant.
Stephen Connolly, applicant.
Phil Cordero, Allen and Major Associates, engineer.
Now, we are here. This is a demolition, notice of intent, to be distinct from the site development plan. So let's address the demolition one first. And I should address right up front that at the last meeting we had, the commission voted to issue an enforcement order. And we discovered that there was a, what I'll call a ministerial mistake in the verbiage. It certainly wasn't my intent, and we've had an opportunity to discuss what our thought was. The way it was written, and Steve, I say this for your benefit because it is written as a violation of a prior order. And what we were intending to do would be to put forth a go-forward basis order to test the monitoring wells. So that it's essentially a mistake that the way it reads, there was an order in November. I know I requested it, but there was no order. We've had several discussions about that, but I acknowledge that we did not have a previous order, so you're not in violation of anything. We did, however, want you to go forward and test the water, and that's a topic for discussion. When I say test the water, I'm talking about
wells.
testing the monitoring wells. And that's a topic for discussion, so we're back and ready to listen to you. It's
But
something
the
that we'd
actual,
like to.
the actual enforcement order itself, we are
Well, we'll have to-
rescinding, we have to do something with it.
We'll have to
because
take
it's not-
a motion to rescind that, because as written, that was certainly
not
not our
right.
intent.
No.
We're not suggesting there was a violation of a prior order, simply that we intended to, on a go-forward basis, to have the wells tested. But having said that, I'll entertain a motion to rescind, as it is written, the enforcement order that was issued at our February meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? And so that if you haven't been here, Craig McNaught is on the phone. He is able to hear us, and we're able to hear him too. Craig, did you hear the motion?
Yes.
All right, any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to rescind the order as written?
Aye.
Very good.
Craig, it's unanimous here. How do you vote?
Issue it. I agree.
You agree?
Very
Okay,
good.
so that's rescinded. Now the issue before us, among others, is whether or not to reissue the order to go forward and test. And I'd like to hear, from your perspective, what are the pros and cons of testing the monitoring wells?
Sure, and I'll start off, and then we have some details to supplement what I'm saying from Phil and/or Chris, Phil Cordero, our engineer, and Chris McCarthy, co-engineer from Allen and Major. First of all, you'll excuse me if I need to try to speak up. I will. I've been sick as a dog, but this was so important. I know. This was fortunately the worst part. The worst part was last night. I hope it was just a 24-hour thing, but you can hear my voice, and but it was so important that, thank God it wasn't deathbed, so here I am. So having said that, I'll just try to speak as clearly as I can. To pick up on your words going forward, we don't want to be at loggerheads with you. We do have our own concerns about when the appropriate time to do testing is, but it seems to me as though dealing with the demolition notice of intent, what the goal ultimately is, if there's concern about could there be more contamination, is when we demo the building, that's when we would remove the tanks, and that's the logical time to do it. And even without any order to test those wells, that's when we would see clearly if there's any contamination. And irrespective of any order from you folks, whether it's an order of conditions on the demo or a separate order related to the wells, that's when we would have to do whatever's necessary to clean up any contamination that is shown. That's under all of the DEP, the mass contingency plan, all of those things.
Peter, can I interrupt you? Did I hear you say that as part of the demolition project, you would be taking the tanks out?
Yeah, absolutely. And
So, can I interrupt? So my understanding was that the project was broken into multiple parts. The first part was a superstructure demolition to grade, not including any foundation work, not including any tanks. The second part was the site work, which included the demolition of the foundation work and the tanks and anything that's in the ground. Has that changed from what the original proposal was?
I'll let Steve answer more fully, but I think that intent is it's a sequence, but.
It's a sequence, but I think there's actually two applications, not three, isn't that right?
There are three. There are three applications.
No.
No, there's two.
We've got the demolition, the site development, and the building project.
Well, that's the building project and the site development are one NOI. We haven't asked for a separation on our demo NOI. We've not asked for a separation in terms of the sequence that was just described. Certainly logically, the sequence is
It was down to
that-
grade without removing
That's the
anything
demo,
below grade.
that's the demo
That
application.
is the demo,
Yes.
nothing below grade.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted
Yes.
to clarify that.
And
Yeah.
then the second and third piece is actually one.
That's fine with me. I just wanted to make sure that the original demo was just to grade. We weren't
Right.
talking about doing any subsurface work.
Right.
Okay.
So that's a little different, I think, than what I just heard you
Well,
say with all respect.
perhaps I was unintentionally broad brush. I mean, I meant to say that what would happen is the demo of the superstructure.
First,
And then,
right.
and then as we move forward, obviously, that's when the tanks would be moved.
Sure. The first thing to do, you get the building permit, so you eliminate the safety hazard.
Correct.
Then the first step is to hire an LSP, evaluate the site. Naturally, the tanks will be coming out. And we want to have an opportunity to evaluate the whole site, because I don't want to be going back and forth. If there is, we have to find out what's there, if anything, and clean up.
And so that's where we say that it's, you know, in terms of timing, that there's no immediate rush to test the monitoring wells separately. You know, it's going to take place in that process of demo and then the, you know, LSP and what's there with the tanks and removing them, which will mandate any necessary cleanup if that's the case. So, you know, we want to work with you. We'd feel a lot better if we can actually get an order of conditions on the demo tonight. Because we're submitting new information, officially submitting it on the stormwater for the site development, which Phil will go into shortly. That's what our goal would be, is to continue to work with you, hopefully get an NOI on the demolition, be back in just a month, April 10th, on the rest of it. And I'm not sure if there's some misunderstanding, but we think that there's a question and possible misunderstanding as to the demo NOI, something about, you know, existing stormwater drain pipes, because there isn't any concern about that. Phil, do you want to explain what?
Can I hold you right there just for a second? I need to take this just step by step,
Sure.
because it's been so complicated. But it's a great clarification for me to hear that you're saying that we're in agreement, that you want to see what's in those tanks and you intend to take them out regardless and see what other contamination is in there, that you see it as your responsibility, as, you know, we've been concerned about that for such a long time. So it's helpful to me to see the project going along, that we are on the same page about that. So taking it step by step, that's really useful.
The testing of the wells would be applicable if we were trying to maintain the tanks, because you want to know what's around it. We're taking the tanks out regardless. And the tanks are below the water table, so when you lift those tanks, then that's a perfect opportunity to evaluate the water. And that's the way it would be handled with an LSP anyway. My concern is the process of demolition. Right now, it's pretty much a stable site. It's been a stable site for a long time. We know that we suspect that there's deterioration occurring. But the concern is that bringing heavy equipment on the site to demolish the superstructure has the potential to open something up, trigger something, or release something. And it'd be nice going in to know that there isn't any contamination prior to the demolition. So we can say the site is stable, there isn't any contamination at this point. The testing of the groundwater shows that there is no contamination. And then we can say, good, we're in a good place. This is the best place we can be going into the demolition. And then after the demolition, we can look at it again and say, there's a little bit here, or there's nothing here. There continues to be nothing here. But I would hate to go in and do the demolition work only to find out that after the fact that something was triggered, you know, that we didn't know about it, and there might have been an additional step that we could have taken in the process to minimize dispersion of something that was underneath the ground. And we see the testing of the water as a very cost-effective and simple kind of, not an insurance policy, but it tells us where we are in terms of understanding what's under the ground. And that's purely what we're trying to do. We're just trying to understand what's under there so that we know that we're not gonna, to try to say that we haven't triggered something in doing the demolition. And it's the fear of not knowing what the heavy equipment on site is gonna do to the stuff that's underground. And optimally, there's nothing under there. That's what we wanna find. Yeah.
If I can add something, Peter, as well, and I might have misinterpreted, you may have been talking about all components of the demolition, but when you said it, I was thinking about heavy equipment sitting on top of the tanks. Because I think currently that's at least one of the contracts, to have heavy equipment sitting in the area where the tanks are. But there's a whole other issue out there, and that is the stormwater discharge. And the reason we're so hung up on the pipes and where they go to is because during the demolition process, there's gonna be a lot of water added to the site. It has to go somewhere. And if that, you've got a detention basin that you've added to the area where the open space is. If there is an overflow there, and I understand that you added a impermeable liner to it, which is good. But if there were an overflow or some kind of a surcharge there, what's gonna happen if there is contamination around those tanks and you add water to it, you're gonna flush it and it's gonna go somewhere. So that's why we're kinda hung up on the stormwater discharge. And I know you're gonna address that, which is helpful. But right now, we don't know where those pipes go. We need to know where the pipes are going to. We also have the DEP comments here, and they've got some questions about the stormwater discharge. So I think we have to pay attention to what they say, because if we don't, they're gonna say it anyway. They've already said it.
When you
All of
refer-
these things are meeting together. We need more information.
When you refer to DEP, from the reports from 1998?
No,
Oh,
the comments on the NOI. They issue the comments.
Did you get a copy of this? You should.
We received a copy of it. We had the discussion about those very comments, I think, at our last hearing, which was a couple of months ago. And there were comments regarding, redevelopment criteria and so forth. And those were addressed in conjunction with the town's peer review consultant through the Zoning Board of Appeals process, Weston and Sampson. Forgive me, I'm forgetting.
Wesley Witten.
Wesley Witten, excuse me. Janet Bernardo, thank you. So we had addressed those comments with her, and when we were last here in front of the commission, we testified to that fact, so that way you could have comfort in knowing that those issues, those procedural or administrative issues that DEP had raised were satisfactorily addressed, through the eyes of the town, through that peer review process.
Well, I understand what you said very articulately. One of my concerns is it's not a procedural issue, but it's a substantive issue. Where do the pipes go?
Well, so going back in history a little bit, again, the last time we were here in front of the commission, we had a little bit of a to-do list, which was to identify and trace out and camera, closed circuit television, all of the existing lines on Elliott and Central Ave, because our communication with DPW, they didn't necessarily know where anything went either. So we figured it was in everyone's best interest, both the project, the applicant, and the town, to vet all of that out. So we did that work. We did that in early January through a consultant. We had it witnessed by the DPW, provided all of the results to them so they could be aware of all of our findings, and had a follow-up meeting with them. What we found, just to be clear, is there were no stormwater connections of the existing site that drained to Elliott Street. There was at one time some sanitary sewer connections from the interior floor drains of the factory that had been cut and capped many years ago and were documented in the Rizzo report that's in the commission's files. We then chased the lines all the way along Central Avenue, and again, we didn't find any connections along the Central Avenue municipal drainage system, save for one 8-inch pipe that emanated from the portion of the factory that exists on the town's land. Where it went within that town's, the portion of the town land, we don't know. We didn't have the rights to go in and chase that out, and we sat down with DPW to communicate that with them, saying, we found one 8-inch connection that goes under the sidewalk and connects into the drain system that goes to the town's property, and where it goes from there, we don't know. DPW had vague recollections of some interior storage tanks that may exist under the concrete surface on the town's piece of land, but we don't have anything to substantiate and document that. So what we did is we provided back to the Department of Public Works our findings, and to identify that as of this point, there are no stormwater connections to the municipal system. We know that there are some surface drain points that head towards the MBTA trolley track lines, and some surface drain points that head to the Central Ave and Elliott Street intersection, and then into the system. And as part of their review at the request of ZBA, they issued a preliminary report dated February 27, that they were generally in agreement with the information that we had presented to them, but we still had some more work to do with them to finalize a future connection. Now, I want to stop my discussion there only because that future connection is directly related towards the notice of intent application for the site construction as opposed to the demolition. You know, again, just to maintain that separation of discussion points.
Right, and that's the way we read the letter from DPW.
Right.
That, you know, they kind of kicked it back to us, but on the site development discharge. Our problem is not site development, our problem is demolition.
Right, so what our
We're adding water.
So what our responsibilities are when, as the building is coming down, is to handle any runoff. And that's where the detention basins that we proposed on our plans came from. The idea of lining the bottom of the basin to prevent any water from infiltrating, to possibly get down to anything below grade, whatever it happens to be. That's what we're mitigating against. So that way, everything, all of the runoff is going to be controlled through a basin and then will be surface discharge. So that provides that.
Surface discharge to Central Avenue?
In terms of, we'll have the control basin to hold back water
Right.
and release it back to its natural design points. That's where it has to go. That's where it goes today at the end of the day, and we need to mimic those existing conditions. We can't contain.
Wait
Yeah.
a minute, wait a minute. You just lost me big time.
Okay.
It's going to get into the river. That's where it's going. We want to make sure it's clean before it gets there. Your original design, your original plan had it going through the drain pipes. Then you found out the drain pipes didn't go where you thought it did. We want to know where the pipes go.
Again, two separate aspects. During
Sorry, one sec. You don't have to hold, thanks.
No problem.
There you go.
So we have proposed, under the demolition notice of intent, on the plans that the commission has, an at-grade sedimentation basin, a detention basin of sorts. That any stormwater during demolition is routed through that detention basin and then is ultimately released slowly back into the municipal system. So it's receiving the treatment within that basin. Now, treatment is a loose term because all we're dealing with at that point is making sure there's no solids in the water, all the sediment is removed, and then it's released as clean water back into the catch basins, which do ultimately go to the rivers, both Pine Tree Brook and Neponset. In the post-development condition, and again, the separate application, we do have a stormwater collection system that does also provide treatment, and then that also does discharge to Pine Tree Brook. But that, again, is a different discussion. I mean, I'm happy to go into them here now, but I just...
So you're just putting it out into the street.
The question you should, from my opinion, the thing you should focus on is how the level of cleanliness, the water that's coming out of the detention basin. If you can talk about the filtration that
Yeah.
you're doing and the
Yep.
level of cleanliness of that water, our concern is contamination from whatever might be in the building, getting into the detention basin, and then either through the process or inadvertently due to a surcharge, effectively getting into the surface room.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. And on that detention basin and on the plans that the commission's been provided, we do have a filtration check dam. So it's a stone product that the water is required to bleed through.
Sure.
And in that process of moving through the stone is the filtration that we want to make sure the water coming out the other side is clean.
What kind of checks do we have about the water that's coming out the other side in terms of its cleanliness?
Coming out the other side,
In terms of, we have this check dam that's, the water's going through a filtration process, going through that, and then the intent is to let it surface discharge into the municipal stormwater system.
yes.
Okay, so what are you doing to verify the quality of the water that's coming out of that so that we know that there isn't contamination in
So
it?
after it's been filtered, how do
After
we
it's been
know?
filtered? What do we want, our concern is, we don't want to put any water into the brook or into the river that has contamination in it. And that's the bulk of what we're talking about.
Understood, and that's the control that we want to put in place during that demolition process. As the site engineers, we would inspect that as we get rainfall. So it would be an inspection prior to, an inspection during if necessary, and definitely an inspection after, to be able to certify to the commission that that water coming out the other side is clean. If we were to find that for whatever reason the water is not clean,
Right.
then then we, as an engineering group and as a commission, we discuss, what else we can implement to make sure we beef up that, that cleanliness, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
So that, go ahead.
But we should definitively say what the level of cleanliness is. We should agree on when the review of that water is to be performed. More, I would assume more at the beginning, so that we set a standard and then we show that it's being consistent. And then, in terms of the process, we should also agree on what the next steps are, maybe 2 or 3 steps, in terms of if the water that's coming out is not to that level, so that we don't have to spend time. Basically, we'll say, well, we haven't achieved the target we're trying to achieve, therefore, we're going to do this. And we all know what it's going to be beforehand. And then if the first step does it, then we know that we're good, and we go on from there. If the first step doesn't do it, we all know what step B is. That way, we're not spending time trying to meet and discuss and all of this. You know what the next step is. And I think that that's something that you should be able to propose before we get to that point. I mean, you should know what each of the steps is going to be. I'm sorry, Craig?
Okay, Craig, can you at least temporarily mute that? Because you're getting background noise in here.
I hear that, but I can't imagine how the water's gonna be clean going over crushed stone.
No, well, that's what we're talking about, is what is the level of cleanliness? And then do you agree that what I'm saying seems appropriate?
I agree with the methodology, or with the idea.
Right.
But to be able to lock it down in terms of process A, process B, process C, I think might be a bit premature.
Well, just reasonable steps.
Yeah.
What's the next reasonable step?
Right, so, again, what we deal with is in terms of providing that temporary area for that water to sit and remove whatever is in the water from the demolition of the building by going through that filtration system. It's standard engineering practice.
Okay.
On the downstream side, we do have silt sacks in the catch basins that could potentially be affected. So it's an additional line of defense that if anything were to go through the stone and not be removed, it doesn't get into the system, it gets trapped in the silt sacks.
Right.
We also have, there would be a distance from the outfall of the basin, as I look at it here, before it actually leaves the property, which is also ringed with hay bales and silt fence.
Sure.
I mean, these are all very standard engineering practices that do work.
Okay.
If for whatever reason, again, we were to find that we get a lot of buildup at the hay bales, which would be our first indicator, it means it's getting through the basin, it's getting to the hay bales, it's starting to build up, means the filtration dam is not doing what we wanted it to do, then we would absolutely have to think about, do we enhance the filtration check dam, do we put a second one in?
Right.
There are also heroic measures that can be done in terms of water quality flocculation systems. We could add chemicals to it to remove materials out of it. But those are all, probably aggressive to define those out of the gate.
Yeah, I don't think, I'd like to think that that's not necessary, as long as we can agree on what reasonable steps, what is a reasonable next step, and as long as we have a way to monitor the water, to take a sample of the water and say, this is where we want it to be. There's no contaminants in this that are beyond what a reasonable standard is.
Well, I think it would be acceptable to have, again, whether it be through, engineering eyes or commissioner eyes, to review the water coming out during a storm event and provide that assessment and provide that report to the rest of the commissioners here, that we can have a collective and collaborative discussion of, okay, is this site meeting the standards we expect it to? And if for whatever reason it weren't doing that, then, then we discuss it.
I think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And the more of that we can set up beforehand, the better.
Yeah, and I think, again, under any order of conditions, if you so chose to issue one, routine inspections, I think would be required.
Right.
Both of the applicant, and obviously the order would give the commissioners the right to review the property at any given time as well.
Well, you keep talking about storm events. I'm interested in the amount of water that's going to be added to the site during the demolition process to keep the dust down. The debris is going to be wet.
There'll be particulates in the air that'll be,
It's
floating.
it's part of your plan.
Dust, yeah.
It is, it is to moisten the materials, because we need to keep the dust control down. In terms of the quantification of the water, I don't know that we've done that. But obviously, we'd have to work with our demo contractor to look at our weather. Our basin needs to serve multiple purposes. It's basically handling water. Whether that water is coming from the sky during a rainfall event or coming from on-site demolition, we need to work with that. So if the contractor is demolishing, spraying down the materials, it's routed through the basin, we need to make sure that that basin, if we're expecting rainfall, is prepared and ready to go, and we need to coordinate that schedule appropriately. So in our world, Mr. Chairman, you know, the source water is immaterial. It all still has to be routed through these same controls. And then the quantity also sort of falls by the wayside as well, because it goes through these same controls.
I don't agree that the
Okay.
quantity is irrelevant. You're adding water to the system. And we need to know that your basin is capable of handling the extra water. We're not talking about storm events.
Mm-hmm.
You've got in part of your construction plan that we've received, you're wetting down, you're spraying the debris.
Mm-hmm.
The water's got to go somewhere. You're tying into the hydrants by the town of Milton. It's part of the plan to get hydrant permits. So you're spraying the entire site. The water has to go somewhere, and we don't have any way to quantify how much additional water is going. And when it bleeds through the side of the detention basin, how is it carried? You're gonna put all of this water into the catch basin?
Ultimately, it goes into the catch basin, that's correct.
But how does it get between the detention basin to the catch basin?
It would
Is
be.
it just a sheet flow?
No,
No, go ahead.
no, good.
Well, no, it's gonna be treated through the filtration dam, which has the small stone, the Marafi fabric,
Right.
large stone, then it's gonna sheet flow, hit the hay bales and the silt fence for the second measure, and then whatever gets through that, it's gonna go to catch basins which have silt sacks in it. So there's almost four levels of treatment before it.
Oh, I get the treatment. I'm trying to figure out how does the water get, from your catch basin out to from your detention basin to the catch basin in the street.
It
Because
filters through the.
I know how it gets there, but it's a sheet flow.
So it's sheet flow, to answer your question directly. It would go from the check dam, it would sheet flow across I guess it's the southeast corner of the site, to the hay bales, through the hay bales, and then into the catch basin.
With silt sacks.
With the silt sacks.
Pine Tree Brook?
Ultimately, well, actually, in this case,
Pine Tree Brook, and how long is it in Pine Tree Brook?
50
feet? 50 feet before it gets into Neponset?
actually, in this case, because of the catch basins as to where they're located, it does go towards the trolley tracks. So it doesn't go directly to Pine Tree Brook in this scenario. It goes northerly to Neponset, and then it connects into, excuse me, it goes northerly to the trolley tracks where it connects into an existing 12-inch pipe, and then that ultimately directly discharges into Pine Tree Brook. So,
But how are you going to treat the surface runoff from all your heavy equipment that you're going to put on the site for demolition? You don't think that a primary and secondary crusher is without oil drippings?
I don't see, Craig, how is that any different than other trucks that are on the street all the time?
Come on,
And what comes off those trucks go,
I wasn't born yet. Okay?
well,
Have you seen a primary and a secondary crusher?
Quick question.
You know what it is?
Craig.
You know how it's going to get there?
Craig,
Yes.
Craig, 1 minute. Can you confirm whether you're crushing any concrete in the first phase? Is the first phase steel and superstructure? Is there any crushing going on in the first phase of demolition? I can understand you had submitted information on the crushing, the concrete crusher. Is that really the foundation, the subsurface materials? Or is-
The foundation, if there is block that can be crushed and maintained on site, we'd like to, obviously.
Okay, but do we know the quantity of block that we're talking about? Can it be stored until the foundation is removed so that the crusher isn't actually on site during this phase?
Well, I would anticipate the crusher being inside the foundation someplace, not outside.
Okay.
Be inside.
But do you see the crusher being on site? I'm trying to address Craig's concern. Do you see the crusher being on
It'll
site?
be after the buildings are pulled down.
Right, it's after this first
Right.
demolition phase.
That's right.
Okay.
Right.
So Craig, what they're saying is that the crushers are not on site during the first phase of demolition, the superstructure. So based on that, can we address that issue at a future time?
I hear what you're saying, Michael, but I think it's not operative.
It's not what?
Operative.
I don't understand.
I think they're going to be removing things that are above the ground, okay?
Well,
and somehow crushing them up.
Okay, but if
Just
it
to
doesn't,
get around.
Craig, it doesn't sound like it is, and if you want to make an order, if you want to basically say as a statement or an order of conditions that the crusher is not on site for the first phase, if they find materials, they'll stockpile it until a time when the crusher is on site. Is that unreasonable?
That's okay by me. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that are going to go along with the crusher.
Yes.
A whole bunch of other things that we have to consider.
Yes.
Besides from the oil contamination.
I agree.
But if we issue an order, okay, and say that there would be no crushers on site for the first phase of demolition.
The superstructure.
And they will not demolish anything underground. Anything.
Yes, and they've already agreed to that. That was the original strategy. Are we in agreement? We are, okay. So we're in agreement, Craig.
Okay.
I think, Mr. Chairman, the amount of water, we can't give it a good quantity of it, but a lot of the water that's going to be used to spray for the dust is going to be absorbed by the material itself, too. It's not like there's going to be a flow of water coming out onto that.
Well, you've got I'm concerned because the sheet flow is in the same area where some of the heavy equipment, I'm not talking about the crusher, I'm talking about your cranes.
But the cranes, we don't have to have the cranes on the low side. That was an option for the town's demolition. That doesn't have to be, that they can, it's gonna be, the one contractor is gonna be taking this entire structure down. They can attack that from the west end coming in. They don't have to be down on the other side of that retention basin. That doesn't have to happen.
Right. We anticipate.
Well, that presupposes that you come to some kind of an agreement.
No, either way. The one contractor is taking, there's a bid gone out for the town-owned parcel. We have the same contractor. So that is gonna be taken down in the most safe and efficient manner, no matter whether there's an agreement or no agreement.
As a single piece,
Yes, as one.
sequentially, as
Yes,
whatever
at the
works
same
best.
time.
Okay.
That's how that's going. So we don't have to be down on that corner.
Okay.
Doesn't have to happen.
Right. We can do the demolition from the westerly direction.
And just
moving
work it
This
in.
way. And nothing actually sits on top of those tanks in terms of heavy machinery.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But in my mind, that also presupposes that you've come into an agreement with the town.
No, we already have.
There is an agreement on demo.
We already have an agreement with the demolition that it's gonna be done jointly. And the town put out a request for proposal, a request, or whatever way they phrase it, they hired a demolition contractor. They had one bid. I don't know if they've signed the contract or not, but I think they're at that point where, there's a lot of things in flux. They wanna see how things turn out. But it's the same contractor as ours. So it's the one contract.
But I understand that the town's contract has the equipment right where the detention basin is.
No, he has the option to use that because we gave the town permission to demolish their building as a part of the agreement from our property.
Okay.
That's what that's all about. So they're not restricted to that corner. They can attack from any angle on our property that they wish.
Okay, understood.
And I think, for consideration as to any condition regarding the demolition permit, you could restrict that
Definitely.
machinery from being on top of those tanks which are in question.
Right.
And that forces it, that gives the commission the control, to delegate it coming or
Well, we don't
dictate it.
want to, we just want to protect the
You wanna be
conditions
like-
that we're unsure about.
Well, that's right.
But that takes it away, and I think that's
Definitely.
been a disconnect all along. I'm glad we having this discussion tonight.
We're under pressure from people in town who are always asking, what's
Yes.
going on. You don't have an example, like a model of the types of material you use to do that filtering of the water. Do you have a model of that type that you could bring in and show us? You don't have with you? Or?
I don't have a model with me. I mean, it's a.
That would be helpful
I have
if
pictures of different projects that we've done it before.
Do you have product literature of the,
If
because
I could
that's
see
helpful.
something like that, I think
Could-
I could explain to.
I mean, I'm sure you're all familiar with, the Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook that's generated volume 1
Yes,
through
yeah.
3 and so forth.
Yeah.
And filtration check dams of this nature are part of that compliance document. So the first piece of literature that I would provide would be taken directly from that handbook and say, here's what we're proposing to use. And then the secondary layer is, we could get a sieve on the material if you felt.
You could do
even
that. That would be.
Picture or see it. I mean, That's not
Yeah.
necessarily
Right,
a
I think
problem.
we need that.
Yeah,
It would alleviate our concerns about the level of contamination that's gonna make it through. That's.
Right, and that makes sense. I mean, that makes sense, I can respect that.
Yeah.
Do you know, and I'm not suggesting anybody should go in and look, but do you know whether or not there's any water now accumulated in the swimming pool?
Is this him or we pick a
I don't think so. I think we're picking up something else. Hey, Craig, can you hear us? Craig?
He's ordering pizza.
Hey, Craig? Did we lose him? Craig?
Craig, are you there?
Yes, I am.
We're picking up a lot of background noise. Can you hear it?
I missed the last part of the conversation.
I don't think he can hear me because
Craig, there's a lot of background noise. Do you have any control over it?
I'm what?
I'm trying to.
He's trying
Could you
to.
call me back in 5 minutes?
Do you have a baby monitor?
I don't know what that is. I don't know.
Background noise, have to get rid of the people. Just call me back in 5 minutes, okay?
Are you talking to us, Craig?
he sounds like he's in the middle of a party or
I
something.
know. Craig, are you talking to us?
Yes.
Well, I don't want to create an open meeting law issue.
Okay.
We can take
Stay on the phone. I'll be right with you.
all right. We'll take a 2-minute recess while you.
I'm here.
Actually,
Yeah. Can you press?
Keep talking. Don't worry, I don't want to.
well, can we press mute?
No.
No, because
We still hear that.
We would still hear it?
Yeah.
He won't. Yeah, he won't hear us, but we'll hear him.
Craig? Craig? What do you want to
Mr.
do?
Chairman, to answer your question, I haven't checked that. I haven't gone into that basement and down into that area.
Okay, so we don't know how much water is there?
I don't know.
All right. So if there is water there, and I'm concerned that we come up with another, 15,000 gallons, where does that go? Can this detention basin handle another 15,000? And I'm not making up the 15, because what'd you take out in June, 19,000?
Well, yeah.
So that's a realistic possibility. We've had
Just in
a
case the
ton of
snow is melting and going into,
Well, that water would be pumped and routed through it. Now, if the basin didn't take all 15,000 gallons, it would take whatever it takes and then would stage it over multiple days to get that water and make sure it goes through the filtration system. So again, everything is going through this filtration belt and suspenders, including that water.
All right. And not to open up another area of controversy, because we seem to be making some progress tonight. But can we get the test results of the water taken out in June?
Yes.
When?
I guess as fast as I
Don't you think we have to find out where the water's when it's gonna come out of the detention basin?
Hold on, Craig. Hold on, Craig.
I don't want to put it, as soon as, I'll make a phone call tomorrow. And I'll phone call and email the contractor who did it, and I'll get the test result, and I can email it to Kathy.
All right. Could we there's a lot of stuff that we're gonna need. We need some manufacturing specs for the check dam filtration.
Yeah,
We
some
need
sort of
to set
model
some
for the-
cleanliness standards that we want to
Yeah.
attain. But I think we can
I'll
make
have
some
that-
progress by the 14th of,
I'll have it well before, you'll have that in hand well before that.
okay,
Okay,
we should be
all
able to wrap it up maybe at the next meeting. That'd be nice.
I think so.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense, that's fine.
All right.
It's dragged on so long, I think everyone is saying, what is going on with?
It's been a
All right.
long process.
Yeah, any questions from commission?
Craig?
Yeah, any questions from commissioners here? Craig, do you have any questions?
In regards to which portion of the demolition project?
The first portion, the demolition project, the superstructure removal.
Okay, but going back we're not gonna no one's gonna be on top of the tanks, right?
That's what we.
That's correct. I mean, that's a significant issue for us. If there's a demolition cooperation agreement between the town and the developer, that makes a lot of sense, because one of the big hangups we've had is putting equipment on top of those tanks. Anything else?
I don't wanna be caught between the demolition contractor gets on top of the tank, and then Mr. Conley says, oh, you caused the leak.
Yeah, but we just said that we would put a restriction on equipment being over that tank, so, and they've agreed that that's a feasible strategy.
Right. Okay.
All right. Any abutters or members of the public that have a question or a comment? Let's try to review what we need in order to make, some serious progress here. And I think when we get that, we'll be in a better position. I mean, we rescinded an enforcement order, but before we even consider reissuing it or moving in that direction, I think we need to get all the data together. We can probably make a coherent decision at our next meeting. But we need specs for the filtration dam?
Yes.
Right, or just for the, product,
Oh, I'd actually like a little model, if possible, something like actual.
Or photos.
Some of the
The
materials.
photos sound.
Yeah, I
Photos?
have some photos of where
Okay.
we used it.
Okay, something.
Yeah,
we
that'd
could
be
see.
fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the quantity of water, and I don't know if there's any way that the contractor could give us an estimate as to how much water he's adding. I know there's an absorption component to it, but if he's adding, 20,000 gallons a day, I'm just making the number up, but I wanna have some
Idea.
correlation between added water and the ability of the detention basin. How big is the detention basin, gallon-wise?
I will get back to you on that. I don't have it at my fingertips. We obviously have that calculation, though.
Okay. And did we say something about the water quality
Yes.
that goes in? I mean, there must
Well,
be
that's what we're
like.
trying to get is.
Okay. There must be like, suitable for drinking, not quite that, but, at some level, however they classify it, I'm not sure. I don't expect suitable for drinking, no.
That's a very
No.
aggressive standard.
No, I
Before we
appreciate-
commit to that.
I appreciate that.
Maybe we'll think about that a little bit
I
more.
appreciate that.
Okay, do you have a standard guide for the level of filtration that we should reasonably expect?
Well, again, DEP talks about it in terms of total suspended solids.
Sure.
That's the way it's written in the regulations, and
Yep.
these filtration check dams remove a certain percentage. And I think we would want to talk in terms of that.
That's fine. Can you
Yes.
give us your what you expect the products to be able to produce and what you expect the target to be going into the
Yes.
into the system?
Yes.
The outflow, really.
Yes, let us put that in the materials to come back
That
to
would be
you.
great.
And it gives us a point of discussion.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that also gives us our target, so any testing that we do, we should be able to hold, that's our target to say, this is what we're shooting for, this is what DEP says is acceptable, and then we'll have something to reach for.
You'll know what to expect.
You will know what to expect, yeah.
One last thing, Jim. Are we gonna talk about sound levels during demolition?
I think you're concerned about the crusher, and as I understand it, the crusher is not gonna be used in phase one. Now, am I correct that when we say phase one, that's the demolition of the superstructure? Right. Phase two would be as part of the site development where you're taking out the foundation?
Yes,
Well, the last time I read that work plan is they're gonna work 8
Work,
six days a week.
say it again, work 8 hours a day, 7 days a week?
6 days a week.
6 days a week.
And there is no level of amount of decibels of sound coming off the site. I want them to exceed the OSHA guidelines for acceptable sound, unacceptable sound in a residential setting, which this is.
Again, that might go to phase two, but you can answer that, Steve, or.
It's a commercial lot.
No, I understand that, but the neighbors have a right to know what's coming.
That article
But I mean,
on sound to everyone on the
that building there's a lot of pieces, it's a lot of add-ons. It's gonna be
Noisy.
It's gonna be noisy, it's gonna be rough. to
And
get
how
that thing
long
down.
do you think
Yeah, how
phase
many
one
days?
is gonna take?
Yeah.
I'd have to confirm with the contractor,
When you come back to us the
collapse
next
and have-
time.
I'll have an
yeah,
exact amount of
Give us like
time
how many days
Yeah.
or,
I'd be guessing, John, I don't
All
know.
right.
that'd be helpful.
And again, this may be more appropriate for phase two, when you're crushing concrete from the foundation. But you might be able to read it differently, but in part of the construction plan, it looked like the crushers were gonna be taking, construction debris from off-site. There was something that was a little confusing in the plan. It almost sounded like you were crushing product from 131 Elliott Street, but also importing product to be crushed.
No.
Am I completely
Well,
wrong on that?
I'll read it, but that's not the.
Okay, that's really
what
not
we're
your
doing.
intent?
No.
Okay,
No.
all right. All right. Anything else? So we've got specs for the filtration dam, water calculations, both what we're gonna get from the contractor, how much water he's gonna put on, and what the detention basin capacity is, what I call the water quality standards, what our target is, and that may in fact be the TSS from the DEP standards. All right,
How many days for demolition?
I reviewed those documents, and I'm looking at the decibel level of about 3 decibels.
Could you repeat that?
I'm looking at a level of sound being projected, okay, of 50 decibels
At what distance?
at 10 feet. Shouldn't exceed 50 decibels at 10 feet
Based on OSHA or what?
on ocean.
No, OSHA doesn't, that's more for the workers.
Yeah, that's not for demolition, yeah.
But these are the residents that are going to be listening to this 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. Both the demolition and the crushing.
Yeah, but to make an omelet, you have to break some eggs, though, you know.
Don't go technical on us.
In the documents I gave you, I gave the commission.
Okay. And how about the capacity of the catch basin? I'm still troubled by this sheet flow coming out of the check dam, crossing in a northward direction, and then finding its way somehow to a catch basin.
Okay.
Is there an issue on the capacity of the catch basin to accept all of that water? So it's not only the capacity of the
Yeah.
basin to hold it, but it's at the other end. I mean, how's the catch basin gonna handle all this water?
Yeah, no, we're limited by the input capacity of a catch basin, which is 2.5 cubic feet per second. So the water leaving the check dam has to be within that range. So, the check dam slows the water down, releases it more slowly because of the pores in the Marafi fabric and the smallest stone, and then just releases it. As long as we don't exceed 2.5, then the catch basin will be fine. I mean, if you want more information on that, we can look into it and provide it.
Yeah, would you do those calculations, please?
Sure.
Okay, all right.
Do you expect any oil sediment to be trapped in the Marathi fabric? Or do you have another pig pads to put in that would readily absorb oil in the sheet flow?
I didn't get the last part of that. Are we expecting oils to be in the sediment?
Will the oil, if any oil is generated on the site from the sheet flow, okay, coming off material that you're demolishing, or from the equipment that's on the site, it's going to go to the check dam. Will the Marathi, my question to you is, will the Marathi fabric in the check dam absorb any sheen of oil before it gets into downstream activities such as the Pine Tree Brook?
I don't want to say that it's going to absorb it, because I might be speaking out of turn in terms of the specification. It would definitely retard it. The surface area of the stone would also collect on the surface area of the stone in the check dam. So that's where that oil would go. And then if for whatever reason any oils and gases were to get through the system, that's why catch basins are equipped with the hoods and the sumps inside them, because then the oils and gases can float to the top, so they're not discharged downstream. I'll certainly put that question in my materials and answer it more fully. based on the Marafi.
All right, and just make sure the catch basins on Central Avenue have those hoods. Because, and that's why we need the test results, because if in fact water is accumulated in the foundation, swimming pool, whatever we call it, I'm just concerned that if that water is being discharged, that could be contaminated with petroleum products. And that goes to, I think, Craig's point. I mean, it may not come from the demolition itself, from the metal sheets and the structure itself, but it might come from another source.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Any? All right, thank you. So then, do we have the assent of the applicant to continue this until April 14th?
Yes.
I asked the public. I did before anyway. Anybody from the
You did.
public about it? Yeah. The assent of the applicant to continue this until April 14th?
Yes.
All right. The sooner you get us the information, the much more efficient we'll be on the 14th. All right?
Yes.
Perfect. We're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
We're talking about the
Yeah,
site development
development.
package? Site.
Right, the next one
That's
is.
continued.
next.
Right, we're gonna go into that, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just,
You look at you.
a little movement, you know? A little bit of movement.
All right, so now we're on number 10, which is site development, continued hearing. And actually, for the record, would you re-identify yourselves, please?
Peter Freeman, attorney for the applicant.
Stephen Connolly, applicant.
Phil Cordero, Allen and Major Associates, engineer.
Chris McCarthy, Allen and Majors.
All right. All right, what can you tell us about the site development?
I can just go right into it.
Yeah, Phil.
Okay, fine.
Jump right
That's fine. Just to get into it, as I alluded to at the last hearing, one of the open ticket items that we had was with regard to the formal connection for the stormwater system, how we're going to drain the building once constructed. And part of the quandary was in the unknowns as to where the existing systems drain to on the site. As I mentioned, we were able to confirm through the use of video camera that there was only one 8-inch connection that exists approximately where the town's portion of the building is, the town land that discharges out to Central Avenue. We also did camera work of all of the lines that run up through Central Avenue. And what we found is that there's a 12-inch drain line, municipal drain line, that routes all of the stormwater from the intersection towards the MBTA trolley tracks, where it connects up with a 12-inch drain line that ultimately direct discharges into Pine Tree Brook. However, the last segment of pipe that connects the municipal system to the trolley tracks is an 8-inch. So just doing the numbers, it goes from a 12-inch pipe system down to an 8-inch. So it actually restricts flow. So that constriction prevents us from tying any of our drainage into it at all. So we sat down with DPW and we went over these facts, and we tried to come up with some alternative solutions. And Mr. Lynch advised us of a similar project that occurred on the easterly side of Pine Tree Brook, where the applicant permitted a direct discharge into Pine Tree Brook, and recommended to us to review the applicability of doing that for this project. So we submitted back to the Department of Public Works a new design plan showing a direct connection from the site, and none of the controls on the site have been changed since the last iteration the commission has seen. It's basically picking it up from the end of the site, running it within the Central Ave, Elliott Street intersection, and then directly tying it into Pine Tree Brook. And it is upon this connection that DPW issued their preliminary findings letter dated February 27 to the Zoning Board of Appeals, that this connection is preliminarily approved, but we have some additional steps to go through with them, including obtaining a stormwater management permit through the Department of Public Works. In terms of procedure, we have not formally submitted these plans to the commission here, and we would like to do so either we could hand you reduced copies here tonight for immediate quick reference, or we could formally submit it, to start tomorrow, including all of the stormwater calculations that support this connection, And that's the connection we would like the commission to review as it pertains to the stormwater management for the site development notice of intent. All other aspects of the building, the construction and so forth remain the same. It is just the point of discharge from the property line to Pine Tree Brook.
Now, when does that, when does,
Applicable federal and state guidelines of direct discharges into a perennial stream?
It does, so long as we meet the Massachusetts stormwater standards for water quality treatment on site, which we've already testified that we have in terms of sediment removal and water quality through our devices on the property. When it leaves the property, it's presumed clean water, and it can be directly discharged into Pine Tree Brook, again, with the commission's approval, of course.
You will sign a statement to that effect? You will certify to that effect?
Well, we'll certainly certify to the calculation.
Will you certify that the water leaving the site will be perfectly clean and going into Pine Tree Brook?
No, similar to our.
You won't?
No.
Yes, you will, or yes.
Craig, let him talk. He can only certify that it complies with the applicable standards. They're supposed to work, and I'm not trying to be loud, it's my damn voice. You know, I mean, nobody could certify exactly what it is, but he can certainly certify that it meets the standards, and that's what it's intended to do.
Right.
To be clean water.
Right, we could certainly certify that everything is constructed in accordance with the permits and plans that we have put forth. We cannot certify that the water is of a particular quality unless it's tested by a certified laboratory and so forth. So that's the limitations of what we can do. And I think that's what you'll find is the limitations of any engineer that's certifying to any plans under a certificate of compliance here in front of the commission. We can only certify to the construction of the plans as approved.
sequencing, I've got a question. When does this new drain go in? Because I'm concerned with, we keep using sequencing and phases, and I had originally had, in my mind anyway, 3 components. 1 is the demolition of the superstructure, 2, the site development, and 3, the building of the project. We seem to have joined the last 2. So you get the demolition first. Now we're on site development and building project. That sounds like it's part of the building project. But if we go to the beginning phase of this second stage, there's a lot of demolition of the foundation, the crusher that Craig was concerned with. And we're going to have a lot of the same drainage issues. Is that pipe going in before the demolition part of the second stage, or is it going in after?
No, it would, and we would advise the applicant, and I'm sure he's going to agree, is it would go in after the demolition is complete. So again, that detention basin system remains in place to handle the stormwater, so that way we're not making the formal connection directly into Pine Tree Brook during the demolition phase.
But wait, how can you have that detention there? You're taking the tanks out.
Well, and what Chris is mentioning to me is, as you're removing the foundation, you're digging down. So you're in effect creating a new detention basin of sorts, similar to any water that exists in the lower machine room that you referenced at the last hearing. That water can be pumped and routed through the detention basin system, through the filtration, and off it goes.
This is the underground garage in the building. So this whole thing, this whole site is going to become one big detention, one big hole.
Right. Right, but if you're pumping out, you have to pump it to some kind of a detention basin, and that detention basin is going to have to be moved, I think, if you're taking the tanks out.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it would be moved. Yeah, there would be modification there that, once the tanks come out, again, that's going to open up an excavation in the southeast corner. The foundation is going to open up another detention basin, so there would be some modification of the stormwater controls at that time, yes. But to your original question, though, is, when does this go into play? And this goes into place after all of that demolition has occurred.
All right. But I think you're going to have some additional problems. You're going to have to be pumping up to some level to allow it to sheet flow if you're going to use the same catch basin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that is going to work.
It's going to have to be, we're going to have to set up, a means of stormwater control, of water pump control. It's gotta, they're not just gonna.
But you're
pump it
not there
into the
yet.
catch basin.
Is-
Well, that's gonna, right, we're not there yet.
Okay.
That comes during the process of construction, where we go, we assess, okay, we've got this open now, let's, remember before, we had a whole system down here?
Right.
So it would catch everything before it hits the road, it'll be something similar to that. Filtration, catch basins,
All right.
so the whole thing.
All right, but I'm not sure, this is just informational at this point?
Yeah.
Well, it has to be informational tonight only because we haven't submitted the materials for you to review. So we're going to submit those immediately, and then at our next hearing, we'd discuss this in much greater detail.
But to the extent, you've kind of leapfrogged over a pretty significant stage, though, and that is the underground, the subsurface demolition. So you're talking about, would you be looking for approval of that plan?
Ultimately, it's part of the site development notice of intent, yes.
Ultimately, but I just don't want to get the cart in front of the horse.
But what you're proposing now is just the off-site connection of the stormwater. The whole on-site issue is still up in the air, but you see this is the way that the off-site portion plays out.
No, what I'm proposing is, in order to support this project, we need a way to have stormwater management. And this direct pipe connection is the solution to that stormwater management that previously was a bit unknown because of the piping network. So again, for the commission, you need to look at the entirety of the project. The development of the building, the stormwater management standards, everything along the frontage, and the direct connection to Pine Tree Brook. So essentially what we're asking for is to amend our application to now include this line in addition to every other discussion point that we've had. And, Chris is pointing out that we do have, in the site development drawings, there is a separate erosion and control sediment plan for during construction of the building that the commission should review. Yeah. And we can apply to this the same level of review that we're talking about at the demolition, which is, everything's going to go to a temporary basin, and let's review the water quality condition, and assuming everything is working properly, we're getting the treatment we should, and then it discharges, and we're off to the races.
And optimally, that would be based on what we had done for demolition. So it's just building on the.
It's just moving those details
Moving
somewhere else.
those details
Wherever we have to
around
move
and-
it
right.
to
Okay.
be able to dig and.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Good strategy.
What you'll find when you look at the plans and compare the two together is we have the basin in the demolition phase is up in this area, in the green area that we have now. We're leaving the tank area, the pavement alone. In the building phase, the basin is moved to the corner, to the absolute lowest point, the lowest elevation of the system, where again, everything is routed through it.
Sure.
And then again, the foundation removal, all of that stormwater gets pumped and it gets routed through these basins and the controls. And exactly what we said, just repeating it, that what we will have learned and have implemented during the demolition phase will immediately have to be applied to, the construction phase if we learned a valuable lesson or the treatment wasn't adequate or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Yeah.
Sites behave differently. This site, you might not see any runoff. It might just be, just go right in, into the ground.
Yeah.
It's dry. Some sites you think, boy, this is gonna be tough to control, and it's nothing.
Right.
So it's all different. You just don't know until you get into it.
Yeah, and in the case of this site, it's primarily building. So it doesn't take very long for the site to go vertical, and then you have instant stabilization, and all the stormwater discussion falls right by the wayside, because now you have a building that's controlling everything.
Can you refresh my memory? I remember looking at details of the parking area there was a trench drain in the parking area with a device.
Focal point oil boom system.
Okay, oil boom, right, okay.
Yeah, in the-
Oh, I'm
in-
sorry.
Talk that one.
Yeah, we're doing multiple tapes here.
Okay.
To be more specific to your point, in the driveways leading down to the lower parking levels.
100 feet.
Yeah.
Well, for the wetland.
I know, then what,
Kathy, can you look at notes or something
Yeah,
as to
well,
what we,
the leaching field, was that out there and then we?
and then they moved it back, we told them to move it
was
back?
that it? Yeah, maybe.
I mean, the only thing they've got right now is the leaching field is outside, and their limit of work hay bale line is in our jurisdiction, but none of the work is.
Yeah.
What did they say here? Did they move anything back?
Present project. House setback, 145 feet. Now it's 157, they're moving further away. Septic, 106, 93. Septic reserve, the septic, maybe that's what it is. The septic reserve is within our jurisdiction. Driveway is 105, grading is 102. Fill is 115 cubic yards. Fill in the buffer. What are they filling in the buffer? 2.3 cubic yards?
So that was approved previously.
Yeah, right.
Okay, let me find the, I just received this, right before the meeting.
So the septic reserve is space that they're holding out for future septic expansion? Is that what that is? Because it's
I don't
not,
know.
I don't know what septic reserve is.
I haven't heard of it before.
I suspect it's
Well,
just future expansion.
The house
free
is much,
future-
it's
what?
smaller, right?
I
Much
do.
smaller.
Oh, okay.
Like a bad flute, or a bad.
They're like a kid
Yeah, yeah,
practicing.
something.
But it's,
Bad,
it's,
bad. It's a very talented child practicing.
but if the septic reserve is within 93 feet of the wetlands boundary, and this is 106 feet,
Well, this is the reserve area here.
Do you think this was the well shed?
See, that's the reserve right there, is 93 feet. So they're saying that this is reserve.
Let me read,
wow, I have no idea.
okay, let me look at the original, but I thought because they were changing so drastically, it would be a whole new
Well,
NOI.
they just gave it to us today.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't feel too bad about asking them to wait until
No, they
the
just
next.
wanted to know what to file.
Okay.
Modification or NOI. Not to approve anything.
What
Right.
was the
Just
last
for
one? Was the last one that they submitted?
That's what we can't
Windows
remember.
10.
Yeah, but did we determine that it was not
If it was a notice of
applicable?
intent, we issued it.
Oh, it wasn't notice of intent.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Was
it-
it- was it-
Allegiant, I think for some reason this was in the wetlands and they moved it.
I think that's right.
And now that
It
it's
seemed like an easy,
outside-
it seemed like an easy task for them, because I know we were walking along, isn't there a stone wall along here somewhere?
Yes, because we had to climb it over it.
Yeah.
And go way into the woods with Margie.
Yeah.
Marge Jeffers, right. Because isn't that her property?
Yes, I believe it.
And
I think
is
that's
that the
what it is.
vernal pool?
No, I think the vernal pool is further away from here, on Mrs. Jeffers' property.
Okay. So-
It could be. I'm
Yeah.
sort of disoriented as to where her house is.
So I'll research it more for the next.
Do, yeah, that would be
Okay.
great, Kathy.
All right. Do we have anything else? Nothing on the agenda?
Have you heard any word about the cell phone? The cell tower? The cell phone tower?
No, other than the circuit court gave them full range to go forward and build their 120-foot tower.
Only 120 foot.
Well, yes, but there were no, we were trying to do a deal and say,
Right.
we'll let you build 110 if, or 100, whatever, I think it was 110, if you agree not to add on, on a contract basis. But the court said, no, forget it, they can build 120, and the new law now allows them to have add-ons of another, 10 or 15 feet.
Oh, really?
If they go back, yeah, the federal law changed, and the cell tower owner can go back and do an enhancement. Pretty much free rein. That is, without demonstrating a need to fill a gap.
Okay.
So, bottom line is, we lost at the First Circuit. But I haven't seen or heard anything from them.
And I did not vote with the committee on this one because I argued that cell towers are too important and the courts are going to see them as too important and give them wide leeway,
What?
which is what has happened. It's just what's happened. I said, we're not going to be able to control this. It's public interest and it's a safety issue. And the court saw it that way. That's the underlying theme in the decision.
So are you telling us I told you so? or-
That's a lot what it sounds like.
A long way around to your point.
Formally put.
attorney.
All right, we've completed our agenda. We have nothing to sign, is that correct?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you.